Hello all, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a project update video for this 1/6 scale Armortek Late Production German Tiger 1. Since the last video update, the last set of tanks detailing has been completed and installed, and the model in this condition now is ready for painting. We'll be going over these additions and modifications in this video. Just like with the top deck, the kit is designed for the turret plate to be permanently bolted to the turret sides. Just like with the top deck, I designed the roof to be removable in case the need be for getting access to the radio control equipment. This was done with a similar system that was done with the top deck, and that is the use of magnets. So you take off the top deck, I open up the hatches, and give a nice firm tug. The top deck is removed from the turret. With the top deck off, you can now see the interior portion of the turret with all of its machinery exposed. Before I go into the machinery, here's a quick view of the magnets. There are magnets mounted all along the sides of the turret. Now, just like with the top deck, the top portion of the turret is not made out of steel like it is on earlier versions of the Armortek Tiger. On this model, it's made out of aluminum plate. As we all know, aluminum is not magnetic. So in order for the magnets to work, the steel plates that come with the magnets that click onto the magnet for cabinets is actually bolted to the bottom portion of the turret plate. Here goes the turret plate here. You can see the steel plates that are magnetic that are bolted to the aluminum plate. All fasteners are blended thoroughly and seamlessly into the bodywork. This is for both the fasteners for the magnets as well as the original mounting fastener locations for use of bolting the top deck to the turret permanently. Starting with the gun's elevation, that's facilitated by this motor over here. This system here is 100% the Armortek system, and no mods were needed to be made to the system. It is simply built as is with no mods necessary. The way the system works is with a camming action. There is another steel bracket here with a track that is laser cut into it. Here we have a brass lug. This brass lug is affixed to a threaded shaft which is connected to the motor. When the motor rotates, the lug will move up and down the threaded shaft, and since it's on this track, the lug will proceed on elevating and depressing the gun as it moves up and down this track circuit here. This is the same system that's mounted in my M4A4 Sherman, and videos of that can be found on my video listings. On the opposite side of the motor, on the turret, is the limit switches. The purpose of these two switches is that it prevents any damage occurring to the motor when the gun hits its maximum elevation or maximum depress. Once the gun hits a certain point, it will trigger the switch, killing the motor and only allowing the motor to work in the opposite direction until the other switch is activated. The system works very well and is a staple on all Armortek tanks. One modification that I did make to the setup is the actual location of the switches. The stock Armortek kit wants you to mount the switches in this location here on this large bracket. The way it works is the one switch will make impact with the bottom plate of the turret, while the other impact switch will hit the top deck. However, because the top deck is designed to be removable, I went ahead and altered the design to better fit the system that I have here. What I went ahead and did was I fabricated a brand new bracket out of steel and bolted it directly to the Armortek turret bottom plate. The switches are then simply mounted to the bracket, and then whenever the bracket hits or depresses to a certain point, it will still trigger the switch and still serve the exact same function. This setup here is basically what you would see on older Armortek systems, and I went ahead and recycled it for this newer system here. The last system that was added to the gun is that of the main gun's recoil. This tank here is fitted with the Armortek recoil package, and what it features is the recoil animation as well as the gun flash and the sound of the gun firing. The sound system facilitates the gun's firing with the Benedetti sound system, and it patches in with this recoil setup here. The way you see the system is purely stock Armortek with no mods made to this system here, and it works very well. This brass lug is what connects to the tank's gun barrel, which is seen on the outside of the vehicle. The system features a very sturdy clevis and linkage system, which is all made out of high-end aluminum. The servo is also very high-end. It's a Savo or Savux servo, very powerful and very high-end. The servo plugs into a transformer box, which is on the inside portion of the tank, and that system mates well and effortlessly with the rest of the Armortek sound system and motion pack. As for the light for the main gun itself, there is a long subloom that runs into the barrel, and attached are 4 large LEDs. Everything comes pre-wired, and the system resembles that of the Tamiya 1/16 scale tanks. The LEDs are very bright and can be seen from the outside of the vehicle when the animation is triggered for the firing of the main gun. One mod that I went ahead and made to the Armortek firing system was that of adding a jack that disconnects the subloom for the firing light from the power box, which is located inside the tank. The purpose of doing this is so that if you need to remove the turret, there's absolutely no umbilicals that are keeping the turret connected to the body. With a simple disconnect plug, the turret can now be fully removed from the body if need be, and then reconnected as simple as it was disconnected. And here go the turret functions in action. I'll first turn on the radio, turn on the tank. Now when the tank turns on, as part of the startup procedure, the barrel will recoil and go back to the extended state that you see here. Once it does that, that's the tank letting you know that the system is ready and the tank is ready to operate. Now the tank is ready to operate. Turret rotation. Gun elevation. In this case, we're depressing the gun. And the firing animation. The last major component to be added to the turret, detailing wise, is that of the rear bustle bin. The rear bustle bin that you see here is the kit supply component, and it's comprised out of components made out of laser cut steel as well as CNC aluminum. However, instead of using the kit supplied component, I went ahead and swapped it out for a replacement kit from 6 Scale Icons. The 6 Scale Icons component is all comprised out of photo etched brass and comes in an unassembled state, which we can see here from these quick snippets that I took prior to assembly. The kit gives you everything you need required to assemble the bin that you see here. The bin is fully detailed with functional retention latches and functional lids. The lids also have their detailing, in which small strips of rubber will be added to the perimeter of the lids in order for that of the weatherproof seal. The rubber is included with the set that we have here. However, the strips obviously haven't been cut out, as they will be added to the bin after the piece is painted. The set with the Armortek Kit Original. The Armortek Kit Original, as we can see here, does have the correct overall shape and appearance and is adequately made. This piece here will not be discarded. In fact, I'll most likely be recycling this piece for a future Tiger 1 build that I have planned for down the road. The bin is, like I said, is all made out of photo etched brass, and also comes with all the rivet detailing that you see. The bin itself is all soldered together assembly, and the set is very nicely done. Now, if the builder who does not have any experience with working with brass, soldering, or sheet metal, then this set is highly not recommended, as this set does require a certain skill set that, if not had by the builder, will make assembly of this piece very difficult, if not impossible. It is also worth mentioning that 6-scale Icons itself is no longer in business. The owner of the company passed away last year. However, all of the rights to all of the components were acquired by another company named Field of Armor. I have the link to the Field of Armor web address listed below. And here's the bin now ready for installation. As you can see from the previous scene, the bin has been thoroughly primed. In addition to the bin being primed, so was the rear portion of the turret. The bin itself will mount onto the tank via these two locations here. Now, as of note, on the Real Tiger 1, these bins were fixed in 4 locations. 2 on top, and these 2 straps here on the bottom. As you see, the bin does have the straps present, however, they're for detail purposes only, and are not going to be used for the actual fastening of the bin. With the 2 fasteners on top, I've seen that the bin itself is installed in a nice sturdy manner, so the addition of the 2 bottom fasteners is just not needed. As for the bolt locations, the Armortek kit does have 2 locations pre-drilled and tapped into the turret. However, with the use of the 6-scale Icons bin, I had to relocate the holes slightly from the Armortek kit originals. The Armortek kit original holes were simply plugged up with the bodywork and sanded flush. 2 new holes were drilled and tapped into place, and the threads from the screws directly bolt into the turret. One design feature that I built into the bin was the ability to be removed. The fasteners are not permanently fixed in place. The purpose of that is in case the need arises to remove the turret, getting access to the rear lifting lug to pick it up is a bit cumbersome with the bin in place. Also, the bin is very fragile, so picking the turret up from the bin is definitely not recommended. With a simple hex driver, you simply remove the 2 small M3 fasteners, the bin is removed, and then you could then proceed with the removal of the turret, much in the same manner as the real German Tiger was in real life. Also, since the last video update, a quick mod was made to the escape hatch hinge that's found on the turret. If we recall from the previous video, the hinge was pre-installed onto the tank via the previous modeler. The hinge is mounted onto the tank as per the kit and utilizes 2 large Allen screws that bolt the hinge directly to the tank's turret, which give it a nice, strong, and sturdy install. On the Real Tiger 1, instead of Allen screws that are used for this purpose, there are actually 2 very large hex bolts. The Allen screws were simply removed, and hex bolts of the same thread and diameter were added in their place. Also, a 3rd fastener was added. This 3rd fastener is missing on the stock Armortek hinge. However, the Armortek hinge does have the little cutout for the 3rd piece. The addition of the 3rd fastener was very simple. I simply just drilled a hole directly into the turret, cut a piece of styrene to simulate that of the bottom portion of the hinge, and then sandwiched it in with a fastener. The fastener itself is simply glued into the tank and has no load-bearing capability. It's just there for detail purposes. With the addition of this last screw, or last bolt, it completes the look of the hinge, completing it, and also helps the look of the model. Moving towards the sides of the turret, we can see here on this model, the tank is equipped with spare track clamps. The spare track clamps that you see here are kit supplied and are actually an aftermarket component from armorpacks.com. The pieces are comprised out of white metal castings and are very nicely detailed and very nicely and accurately rendered. They all have their cast texturing on them as well as cast numbers and sculpted on welds. The Armortek turret also has the provisions to mounting it to the tank in that all of the fastener locations are actually pre-drilled. These components here were actually installed by the previous builder, and he did an adequate job in installing the parts that no revisions were needed to be made in order to mount the pieces on firmly. Even though the parts were installed correctly, some of the pieces were in a broken condition and a broken state. Namely, on the top hinge portion here, some of the handles were broken off on some of the clips, and they were simply replaced with that of metal floor wire. Some of the lower portion clips were also suffered some damage upon receiving of the kit. Typically what was missing on these pieces here were some of the little pegs that are for mounting of the track. The pegs were a simple replacement. Brass rod segments were cut and then were soldered into the white metal bases. The soldering ensures that the piece is nice and sturdy. It won't break off and is very robust. And also the solder bead replicates that of the weld bead, which is found on the real tank as well as on the Armortek's castings. Moving our way to the top armor plate, the plate that you can see here, the last of the turret welds have been sculpted on. Even though there are epoxy welds sculpted on, the turret is still able to be removed and disconnected from the turret. And that concludes this project update video for this radio-controlled Armortek German late production Tiger 1. If you like this video, stop by and like us on Facebook. And don't forget to check out eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 scale and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thank you.